welcome to another episode of Feed the Trolls. Sponge is joining us today, and we're going to be talking about something that gets discussed a lot online, on all the forums, by all the trolls, but for some absurd reason lately, it's being spoken about a hell of a lot more, so I thought it would just be fun, and that is analyst desks. And of course, we have two of you guys. You guys were like kind of the original, the OGs of analysts. I remember watching when you started out, you had zero structure, which I now know because I can watch back and see. You were kind of just thrown in between games and off you went. And what you did was incredible. And then traditional sports started doing the same thing. So esports changed everything. And we'll get into that in a bit. But I wanted to kind of start by asking, Sponge, why do you think everyone is suddenly talking about desks again? Was it just because of JL, or?
Duncan did a great PR for ESL's desk. He was talking about JL all the time. People couldn't stop watching. True. So if anything, the desk viewership, I reckon, for Krakow is up, right? People wanted to go and see what was going on because Duncan was just signal boosting hard. So if anything, ESL should be thanking Mr. Shields right now, first and foremost. But I also think it's interesting from a conversation standpoint to be like, okay, yeah, some people do get nervous in front of camera or, don't have a delivery because a lot of what happens at the moment, we're going straight in. I wanted to do some like defining stuff, but we're straight in the deep end immediately. Good. I think that, part of being a presenter with a camera rolling, depending on which way you're doing it, it's not just as easy as, get out there and speak. It is, obviously, we all have a big leg up. We're native English speakers, so for us, just talking is a bit more natural. But you have some people who maybe get a bit more nervous in front of camera and stuff.
Oh, I mean, they're welcome to fuck off to their language broadcast. So maybe, crazy idea. Maybe leave the English language broadcast for English language speakers. But crazy idea, I know, mate. But
you see it, Duncan. I see it too, mate. When the talent announcement comes out and people are like, "Man, look at all the Brits on the talent announcement," and I'm like, "Well, they invented the fucking language." I think
got a bit of an advantage, haven't we? I know. Fucking hell, mate.
But yeah, I think that the conversation, at least recently, were in a traditional structure or similar to a traditional structure, seeing JL there and maybe not being able to express his thoughts in the way that maybe other analysts can or do, brought a lot of attention. But whether or not that's where the conversation starts around analyst desk being back in the focus is, in my opinion, is maybe at a different point, right? Like, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole here, but I think it's with Counter-Strike tournaments on all the time and different Counter-Strike tournaments being of maybe different prestige levels or different offerings of, quality of the games. Like we're about to do, we had Bounty. They had a bit more of a game show vibe. We're about to do EPL, a bit more of a relaxed, chill couch vibe. What desks are is something that's been placed in the break between one game ending and the next game starting. And what we've ended up at in the modern day is different TOs trying different things, and some of them having success, and some of them sticking to a classic model, and some of them not having success. There's a whole spectrum of conversations to be had there. And also, you have TOs who are always looking to make more money, so sell on their inventory, and by creating things which might be unique propositions for a broadcast, are doing exactly that. And some of those have been successful, and some of those haven't. And that could be down to sales teams or content or everything like that. But yeah, I think that analyst desk should be in the conversation because it's something that TOs are looking to be able to make better, to monetize more so that they can make more money.
One thing you're bringing up here, by the way, like you say, this show's only an hour long, mate, so we don't have to have a slow build. We just get right into the meat and potatoes. Nice. So one thing that is a major topic and a theme I was thinking about for this episode is what you just nailed there, which is actually the most bizarre thing about analyst desk. I'll give you a very, very 30-second brief history of the analyst desk. They didn't exist. Like, I don't even pretend I invented them. By the way, my mate Monte Cristo quite literally did the first type of analyst desk my style in League of Legends a couple of years before I even got my real chance, mate. Like, I think he did that train whistle thing a month before I even did the first major in CS or something, because I think it was like October or something, or maybe it was even the same month and I just did it later. So he already did the sort of like, you do an antic, you do a funny skit, you don't just do a straight analysis, you do some banter with the people on the desk. And I certainly took some cues from that, and also I've always pointed this out, it's cool I got to be on there. I was literally a fan of Inside the NBA, I was a basketball fan, and if anyone ever watched that show, the joke is, what people always say now what CBS Golazio did in football, Inside the NBA did that literally 20 years ago in basketball. Like, they already had the like it's a bunch of people who are like have been around the game a long time, but they only talk about the match if it's really interesting. Otherwise, they just banter and entertain you. And the most bizarre thing to me is this. One, I actually feel like in our era, we did have a sense of what the desk was. And the funny thing is, it was CBS Golazio inside the NBA. The stupidest thing now is real sports broadcasts have gone directly towards that. And in fact, them themselves are like, get the fuck away from this. You know, you go in a line and each ex-pro gives a shit, like, bunch of platitudes. Like, it's a game of two halves. Oh, they're really going to get the game. And then they get, instead of doing that, they do like, it's entertainment, it's bad. Again, every now and then you key in on something in the game if you've got an interesting insight. But also, one thing you're bringing up is because the industry itself has lost its perspective of what a desk is. Like, I'm sorry, I do think for a lot of producers, a desk literally is a safe place where they just put it between two games, like you say, and their goal for real, and this will sound cynical, but it just is if you talk to them, beyond the very rare, extremely good producers, the goal is just get from the beginning to the end as clean as possible with no mistakes, nothing, no wrenches thrown into the works, and just hit every graphic. That really is like the dream of some producers. And as a result, I'm sorry, I think some producers don't actually value it as a proposition. I think it's just something they have to do in their job, and that they don't want, unfortunately, the sort of things I like to do, they would actually consider that a bit dangerous, or is it worth it, etc. And one thing you've nailed there, by the way, is JL's just the worst example of it. It already was a creeping trend that there were a lot of producers and tournament organizers who seemed like they very cynically thought, who cares about desks anyway? They're boring. So you know what? Just throw on insert random player. And the joke is like JL being on the desk is like the ultimate one of those. Remember the really old school Pokemon cartoon where it was like, which Pokemon will it be this time? Like, what the hell? He's like the most crazy one ever. Like, what the fuck? Is that even a Pokemon? Like, that's the JL. But mate, you could go with other names. I'll just be polite, since you're going to have to meet them. I won't say the other names recently, but there's other ex-pros that they throw on there. And one thing I do find sad is they do seem to think that it's like throwing a pro on is like the surprise guest on WWE. Like, oh, but whose music is that? Oh my God, that guy. And what they don't realize is 2 minutes later, he has to be talking to be an analyst, though. Like, that novelty only pops on the graphic and for the first 30 seconds. And if anything, as JL showed, the real problem is this. We don't even treat those like they're guests. They're just an analyst. So at that point, if they're doing a bad job as an analyst, they're just a bad analyst that was a famous player at this point in time. And unfortunately, it does feel like the only like advancement in desks is how many more ex-pros can we get in? Because what people will never realize is technically everyone's an ex-pro. Does no one get this, by the way? I'm the only person in the history of the analyst desk who has zero pro experience. Even Maui played like semi-pro in NA. Yanko was like semi-pro in Europe. I always tell Vendetta he sort of played pro. You know what I mean? They all did. Literally everyone on some level was a pro. But if anything, this is what I don't get. They're doing the job properly. They're analysts. But we have all these pros on where they just exist in this weird state, like I was a pro. It's like, is that what you do on the desk? So that's why I want to have this conversation. I don't really know what an analyst desk is supposed to be anymore, mate, at this point in time. I feel like no one really has a set idea. We just have these loose ideas that keep bobbling to the surface again. And if anything, haven't we gone away from what people do now in sports? We don't really do that anymore, right?
Well, I think, like Sam, you were just doing the hosting over there for it, but I would say the thing that I think is the closest to a classic analyst desk from back in the day is what PGO offer.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But now, so my thing about the PGL thing was, okay, so I grew up watching you guys, okay? So for me, an analyst desk was always, and this is the way I've always framed it as a host, is that it's meant to be like, I'm sitting in TeamSpeak and we've just watched the game with our mates and we're like talking shit about it. That was kind of what I always imagined it was like. So I would watch sort of like Richard or Machine hosting, and that's what it felt like to me. Like I was literally sitting in a conversation with my friends, and I couldn't speak to you, but the way you guys used to speak and banter was very much like the conversations we would have. And that is kind of...
There's that famous meme everyone's probably seen to do with like things like Joe Rogan podcasts. You know, the one where it's a kid and he's sat eating some like ice cream and then he's just sat next to a picture of like a bunch of people having a conversation. And people say, I like the way the idea Sam was doing that, but next to a screen with like me, Richard Lewis, Sam, and like, hey, it's me, the guys. Yeah.
That was my sad life. I sometimes used to take photos of the TV and tweet you guys, but none of you replied to me back
Before
then.
AI,
whatever.
you couldn't put yourself in the picture.
I actually have learned so much about her, like just from doing this show. Like the other day on social media, I saw she did some like inspirational post to herself in the past where it was her as like a chubby, like, you know, insecure kid, and she was like, "I'm doing it for her," like done some fucking emotional shit.
Sam Law.
I'm learning so much I didn't even know. I know.
Well, there you go. But that was what I imagined it to be. Okay, that was always my vibe, and now it's not like that. I'm just going to say it. Like, I think PGL allows us a lot of freedom and trust, but I think many times it's much more structured. But I find it quite weird because the conversation in the last few months has been, look what football is doing, or soccer if you're from America. Look what these desks are doing. Look how they do it. It's so funny. There's banter. There's these clippable moments. And I was like, but we were, that was what it was like. That was
Yeah.
exactly what it was like. And we've regressed.
So what's there's a few things that have changed, right? One is the predictability of the segment for the producer.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from wanting to get the analyst and the host to determine what they're going to talk about before the segment went live. Now, we would go into these things, and maybe back in the day, we would do a Telestrator segment every now and again. It wouldn't be every segment. And a lot of the time, we would go out there, and we didn't know what was going to be asked. Right? Like, there was some core philosophies of, what was a changing moment within the game, or, did a player have a very good performance or things like that. But you didn't really know where the conversation was going to go. And what that enabled was actual conversation. And I think that the other side of things, in terms of maybe the banter or the fun or the gimmick or whatever you see pop up, was talent driven. So let's say that I was doing a segment with Duncan. Duncan has an idea of a thing that he's going to do. My responsibility as someone there is to be able to play along with said thing. It's like improv. We're doing yes and, but we're doing yes and within the confines of a conversation. And we're trying to, like, if Duncan's going to go somewhere, I need to be there not to shut him down, but to support it in that way, because he's going to try and, if he's taking a risk, if he's taking a swing, the worst thing I can do is blank him and just like leave the guy out there, right? Like that's fucked. So, the ability to play with the people who are out there too, because that's what it is. It's like a game of conversation where you're trying to be, you want to be interested in what's happening too. Because if you're actually interested, then the people at home will be interested. And you also need to know who you're on the desk with. So like if I'm up there with Duncan or if I'm up there with Yanko, they're two different personality types, right? Or if I'm there with Jason, I know I can wind him up a bit. I just did a 2-hour podcast where I'm winding those two up. There's like the interpersonal dynamics and shit. So I think one is desks coming in with producers trying to come up with a streamlined way. So no matter who comes in to be the analyst, you fit our structure as opposed to us following you. I think that's a little bit of an issue. But some of that stuff starts to cascade in when I was talking about sales before. So a sales team who's not connected to an analyst desk and what the analysts do are selling on a baseline concept. All right, we got a full screen graphic. Or we're going to have to show these highlights and they're going to be called this. So now you're inserting things into the show that the desk feels like they have to get to because it's been sold, and you're kind of being forced in that direction. Back in the day, we'd do a Star Ladder event. If you think we had any idea what fucking graphics they were throwing up, we didn't know what was coming next. Like, we're just like, is it relevant? All right, talk about this now. Is it not? Just keep on talking about what we were talking about.
Yes.
And you're just bouncing around going wherever. And also, we didn't have an issue back in the day going, that was some shit CS. Like we didn't have a problem like going, that wasn't a good game. Whereas a bit of that feels a bit. It feels, and I think that
those were my best segments, mate, when it was like the game was shit, so no one wants to talk about that. Let's just roast the fuck out of these players. Even the winning team, they can get it too, mate.
But this is what I think's happened, Duncan, is the sense that now, like you're talking about what an analyst desk has become, it doesn't know what it is. We did those experiments with EPL over the last 3 years, right? Where we thought, okay, we'll take it in a new direction. Sometimes we won't even have a segment between maps. Sometimes it's a game show. Sometimes it's something in a server, because the way that, it'd be disingenuous to not think that it's going to change the model of how people are consuming content. It definitely has, right? We know it's the reels, it's the quick stuff. And if you do a segment on EPL, it's say 12 minutes between map to map. And you come in, the first thing is a quick interview. The next thing is Chad and Alex doing some utility on a map that you can learn. And it's not too long. It's not too draggy. It's still punchy. Then bang, it goes into a pre-recorded piece of content. Bang, right? It's not an analyst desk segment, but you provided entertainment in that buffer. And I think with so many tournaments, with people who are getting their nose put out of joint all the time, if you say something as a mild take, right? People are a little bit scared to make those takes. There's big backlash. And then maybe, the more structured desk segments that exist, we're kind of finding ourselves, how can you do tournaments every week with the same teams and you're going to do different stuff every desk segment on the same teams from week to week? Like, you're going to need to throw in more spice or more variety, right? It's about placement in a tournament. Is it a prestige event? Is it a playoff game? Is it a qualification game, right? Like, different things can have different conversation points. A team who's choking, right? The segment doesn't have to be about Team X versus Team Y. The segment can be, this is Team X and they choke. And the whole focus can be on other teams in the past who choked. That can be your desk segment, right? Yes. So it's just, I think there just needs to be, whoever your people are who are driving the segments, they need to make sure they're offering the variety when they can. And that's hard to do when it's happening all the time, non-stop for weeks at a time. So there's a bit of that as well, I imagine.
By the way, two things. One is, I won't mention names, but even to this day, Sam actually tries to do like bespoke intros where she takes what she was told to do and links it. And when she throws like a fucking straight fire alley-oop, I won't mention names, but you know who the fuck you are. They just go... Anyway, the way that Vitality was playing there in front, I'm like, give her your fucking break, do something with it. She just threw you one, mate. At a minimum, at least acknowledge it was a joke or something, and then go in. Don't just like turn like, anyway, thank you. Like, fucking hell, like, as though like your brain was just waiting for her to stop talking and you were going to start talking. And also, on the desk thing, mate, here's one thing that actually infuriates me, because I can tie it to a bigger issue, which is, by the way, spoiler, one of the reasons I want to do this episode is there's a rumour that Analyst desk eventually just don't exist, and that eventually we're back to either casters just talk a little bit extra at the end of the game, probably Andy's fucking dream. He'll be like, can I have Skybox extension while I'm doing it? Whatever. Or even worse, people like the MOUZ of the world go, do we need him anymore? After they've just jumped off the Titanic onto the lifeboat. Like, all right, MOUZ, we'll wind it back in, mate. You wouldn't be here without fucking Analyst desks and people like me going, hey, this is MOUZ. Whatever, he used to be a pro. So anyway, the other thing as well is this. One thing I hate is, and this is where actually jail was underused. I'm not trolling. You should actually yourself as ESL have published those silly and funny clips of jail. Like, here's one thing someone made a point of that is so bizarre to me. You know, on CBS Golazio, there are people don't even watch the show or the game, bro. They just watch the clips. Like, they instantly put all those funny clips on socials while you're watching the game, by the way, live. So if I could put my Instagram, oh shit, the game's on. I forgot. I'll even see like reminders in that sense. And then secondly, they do the very next day, and this has been one of my things I've been pissed off about for a long time, is a lot of my great moments, mate, were on like odd shot in like a clip, essentially like a Twitch clip. They don't exist anymore. Yeah. They're not even on YouTube because ESL just started the motherfucking game inside the server as the VOD. So no matter what amazing thing I did at the intro, it just doesn't exist anymore. There's a fan clip there. Well, here's the maddest thing. In the modern day, they do highlight video the next day just of the desk, mate, of the actual CBS Golazio people and all the like the banter they got up to and the silly thing. And sometimes they made a good point, they put that in there too, but essentially, it's treated as entertainment fodder, and it's actually emphasised. Whereas that's the other thing I don't like about the approach currently TOs do. It's like you have all these weird rules. Then at the end, after your weird restrictive rules make it boring and formulaic, you go, well, since it's boring and formulaic, I wouldn't put that on the internet. So what? You did that. You chose to paint yourself in the corner. Like, why are you doing that?
I think it's just safe and easy, like you were saying, right? Like you can default to it. The other side of it I don't like is ESL was doing this for a little while, and Blast have definitely done it. You've done some of those desks there, Sam, is where it's just the two-person. Yeah, it's so tough. It's tough. Like,
so tough.
Which is also bizarre, because here's what I don't get. I personally have never liked the 3 analysts setup. I think that's 1 too many. I think 2 is the sweet spot, but the idea you just do just the host and analysis is mental. Like, that's why I go so far the other way.
We've had some good, like, there have been some good ones done. I think it depends on the personalities. Like, we did Yumi and Sean with Alex at Star Ladder, right? And I think, like, you know, from a balance there, that's a good balance, right? Like, I think that there are some group. It's like TriCast. There's been some special TriCasts that have existed that are like, yeah, that's a balance. They complement each other. I think on average, I agree with your standpoint of like, yeah, maybe it is too many people. But I think if you get like the people who have a good rapport with each other and understand like making room for each other and the yes and, I think that there are some good sets of 4 people that you could throw together, including the host, obviously. It just depends on if you get those people or not. And maybe that's the other thing. It's like, you know, the personnel coming through to do the gig, how are they meant to build their rapports, or do people need to like think it's not always about how much can I articulate in a segment? Maybe it's about how I can set this other guy up.
I'll get that as well. Here's another thing, Chad. To this day, I want to know from your guys, I haven't worked in an event in fucking years, mate. One thing I hear from people like MOUZ that shocks me is they're still on the thing where you go to the event at like 11 p.m. local time. You find out what game you are working and with who. And that just looks like someone put it into like a fucking randomizer and just hit shuffle. And then the desk lineups. Like, there's another thing I will never understand, mate. One thing I wanted to do when I was in Flashpoint is, right, now we're actually going to fucking design this shit. Like, for this game, I'm going to pick these specific people to make like a rapport, an interesting angle, who's got what side, what bias is. But it seems to me, unless I'm wrong, like, to this day, day, that's done on some weird like time scheduling motivation, not like creating a special desk or an atmosphere. Am I wrong on that?
So it depends. I actually had this question yesterday during HLTV Confirmed. Someone was asking about how like the caster schedule is determined. So if I do an ESL event, we know who's going to be doing what for the whole thing before we get to the event. The whole thing's already pretty much in the document, right? So you know from start to finish. In terms of the decision-making motives, that's a different question. That's a producer-based one. I'm not sure how they're discussing and weighing that up. So I don't know how they come up with their formulations of groupings. But like for Star Ladder, it was like coming in batches. For PGL, it was every night. But like you would assume if you were doing lates, you're probably doing lates for at least a couple of days.
Yeah.
For Blast, I don't know. I can't speak to how they do it. I know for EPL, when we're coming up with our little caster groups, right? There's certain groupings. Like if I put Harry, Hugo, and Henry together, those guys are going to be a riot, right? Like, there's certain dynamics. So when we're looking at, we kind of have a bit more control during EPL of how we want to do the schedule with those groupings. And we kind of go, okay, is this like, you wouldn't put, like, let's say that it existed, but you had a couple of extra dry people. Like that was me, Launders, Yanko. You wouldn't put the three of us together. Like we could still have an entertaining show, but you would want to make sure you got a couple of play-by-play guys and stuff, right? So yeah, I don't know how those choices are made. But you would want to assume that it is based off of what they watch and what they find the most entertaining. But I don't know. I'm not sure how those choices go down, unfortunately.
I don't know how they're done. I mean, obviously PGL, we were finding out the night before. I suppose I'm a bit biased here. I work with those 4 analysts so often that I know all of them really well.
What you're going to get,
I know what I'm going to get if you put them together. I know Maui will wind up Dust. I know Yanko and Dust will have a different vibe to say like Pimp and Maui or whatever. So I'm not, if I find out the night before, it doesn't bug me. I just need to know what the game is and who I've got, and I can kind of determine what that flavor will look like. Probably wouldn't like it if it was people I'd never worked with before, because then I have no clue what I'm getting. I think the first day of the Budapest major, my first desk was Ted and Devilwalk, and I'd worked with
you never met
both
them
of
or whatever, yeah,
but I never really like worked with them on a desk. So that was a bit like, oh crap, I don't actually know what I'm getting here. Like we're gonna have to just see where it goes. So then it's a bit more difficult. But I think as a host, your job is to kind of adapt to whoever's on the desk and try and create a scenario where they feel comfortable. Or I suppose my job, or any host job, is to try to read people very quickly to determine, can I make a joke? Do I have to play a bit nicer here? Like, who is this person and what can they handle, type of thing. But I don't really mind that so much. I worry. I think good chemistry is obvious. So like, I think like on an EPL, like Spunj was saying, you can immediately see people that have worked together forever. I see it with Richard and Yanko, actually. You can just see that they have years of history together. So the moment they're together, they bounce off each other so well. And I think that the issue with that is obviously then it will close off the space to anyone new, because if you have good crew,
wait, someone brand new doesn't get to do the ice skate with that guy. It's that same partner he's had for years who are the best in the world. Oh fuck, this sucks. Oh, it's unfair. No, who gives a fuck? Get him out the screen. No, by the way, one thing I'll get out here, I'll be edgy. You know, my whole career, because I wasn't a pro, people told me, you know nothing about the game. Tell you what, I'm straight fire on fucking camera though, aren't I? I'll go one further. All of your fucking heroes who were excellent players, if they can't do any banter, get them off the fucking desk, mate. That's not what it's for. Like, I've even had to explain to so many ex-pros myself who ask me for tips. Like, here's one of the most basic tips ever, but it takes people events to learn this, is, mate, it's not really like something, each segment you do isn't going in a time capsule viewed by everyone in the world as some, like, that will be preserved forever. Like, don't make an amazing point on day 1, game 2, and then never make that point again the whole fucking event in a year. In fact, I would say every 2 days, pretend like the viewer's a brand new viewer who never even heard that point. And especially if the game gets bigger, it's a great point. Make that point again in the semi-final. There's like a basic example where people get it wrong. And then the other thing as well is, I do think if you can't do any entertaining element at all you can do is straight analysis. I don't even think in the modern day that's what the analyst desk is for, mate. I think you'd be better served on a shoulder piece content or like an Ash type YouTube video where you've got time and people consume it slowly. I mean, I even made this point to Maui. I noticed they actually did do this, fair play, on the last blast, PGL, sorry, which is, I was telling Maui, I don't even like Weatherman segments after the game. I think they suck. I think the best Weatherman segment, in my opinion, is 1.5 point made before the map of what you might look for in the map. Like, here's the key thing that can turn the game. Like, look at Jam rotation on Inferno or something. And then the idea is, as a viewer, I watch it. And I know Stephen did that on PG. I even think Weatherman segments are slightly overused as well, mate, because one thing I always tell people is, it has to be 1 point, mate. 1 point. I can't watch 3 rounds in a row. Even like I say, because we're not in a chill, like watching a YouTube video, your eyes glaze over, mate. It's really hard to follow that point. So I actually think, again, I have my own ideas about what the analyst desk is, but I also feel like we're in some weird, like, no man's land where no one's quite doing what they think the analyst desk is.
I don't know if they held up well or not. I should probably go back and look, but I know that I had a lot of fun doing them. Something that happened during EPO when it was in Leicester. So the players were still on LAN, but the way it was like Harry and Hugo were casting and I was doing desks, but they were 2-man desks. So I was doing with Banks for a while and Machine for a period of time. But one of the things that they had available there to me was a telestrator where I controlled it with like a remote. And I had a lot of resources that I would be able to pull. Like I would make the stuff myself. And when I would go out there, I would deliver things that weren't just like a round breakdown. I remember I delivered one thing about why the doors on Dust 2 should be turned the other way.
Yes.
Right. And I remember I did this whole piece. And then Valve actually, I don't know how close it was to me doing that thing, but I swear it was probably within 6 months to a year. Right. So, and whether or not they did that because of me or that idea just got out there and more people with, but either way,
you got a mad ego boost when you saw they did it though. Come on.
Yeah. Like it's nice when things like that happen and doing a segment like that, it was talking about something in the game, but it was something that might interest people. And it was because I'm delivering it like with a level of emotion to it and something that I care about. Like I think for a 3-minute piece, I can probably keep people's attention for that time. And I'm doing a lot of 2-camera stuff. Like that's something I was never scared of like, oh, I'm in front of a camera. I'm talking about my favorite video game that I love. And when I feel the most version of me is when I'm talking about this game. So I would lead with that and I would try and get that to be the thing that other people jump onto. If they can see that I'm being genuine about something and it's something that I love and I feel strongly about, then I think the viewer can sense that, right? So I think that's one of the things. It's not saying that the people who these days don't love the thing. I just think you need to be the most honest version of yourself and expressing that to get at least that angle with certain things. But yeah, it's such a people's game, isn't it? Like this whole thing. And I think that's why trying to chase the balance is worthy, right? Trying to work out what the balance for a segment should be. Like, do we need a desk segment for the opening stages of, I don't know, fucking like EPO, obviously it's a different structure, but like, let's say it's Semperfi versus, I don't know, fucking Ents. Like, are people going to tune in for that desk segment? Or is it better when Semperfi actually end up getting 2 upsets, then for the desk segment, we explore those upsets?
I mean, what you're essentially saying is if in the schedule, those teams are going to play more, it's a very low stakes game. And it's one where maybe people don't even know the teams anyway. Yeah, that probably isn't worth doing a super deep dive like you would for a semi-final. Yeah. So
it's like, it's understanding what you have available, what you're able to do in, because some people probably know you should have a desk segment for everything. It's like, well, I don't know. Like analysts need to know a lot of teams, a lot of players, right? And if you see new ones, you would think and hope that the analysts actually spent the time to look at this player. Like I saw this Sizzy kid. I went, hey, he doesn't have any games. I'm going to go and download some of his Faceit demos and look how sharp he is. I did that with the Segukawa kid as well. And it's like, if I'm going to talk about this guy, I should know some level of basic, but I can't make a whole segment on his fucking Faceit games. Like, I don't know. I just think it's changed from what it was. Some of the stuff has kind of been forced or been brought in, and it's made things too structured. And now we're in a situation where we need to determine what is best used in this time to make the viewer entertained, because that's what we do at the end of the day, is we try and keep people locked in.
I actually wanted to jump off something you said there about sort of analysts games, the lesser known teams, because this is something that I see so many times online, which is like these 2 relatively unknown teams will be playing the first stage of an event, and sometimes it would be a best of 1 or whatever, and you would do this desk, and obviously I think every analyst tries to get to the event prepared and they try to do their research, but like a lot of these guys are back-to-back events after events. There's 30, 40 teams. And exactly like you said, Sponge, they don't have time to sit and like deep dive a team. So maybe they'll ask like a tier 2 caster or they'll speak to someone, but they don't have time to deep dive. And then they'll do the segment and I'll see the criticism because it'll be these like hardcore fans that are like, you know nothing about this team. You didn't talk about how this one time in like 2018,
Sure.
this guy did this. And there is a part of me that I'm always like, it seems so unfair to expect that of people, because then the next game they lose and they're out of the tournament anyway. They're not a team that's ever coming back, right?
Yeah.
I actually think I did this too. I've just realized as I'm saying this, that when I was just a fan watching, I did this very thing to Blair and tweeted him and told him what an idiot he was because he knew nothing about a South African team. So now I feel like I'm not qualified to even have this question and put it out.
But it's
there.
about the framing, though.
By the way, why is
right?
it always Blair? These fucking chicks just going, bloody hell, can't get a break, can he? I know, it's just a guy who just does his job.
It's the
I'd funny if she was there for that too.
Oh, no.
It's bad luck.
It was a good, I mean, that clip got seen by a lot of people. So all I'm saying is like,
entertainment
if you want it to trend, if you want something to trend, I mean, it can go both ways.
I think a lot of the stuff is to do with framing, though, right? Like, you don't have to know everything about Semper Fi to understand that, like, this team at the moment, they are taking a risk in 2026. They are funding themselves or through Ben the Legend, so Savage's dad, to be over in Europe to have a punt on some of these smaller tournaments, and they're plugging away. And right now, EPL, it's online, but they get to show the wares of what they've been working on. And is there anything that we should respect if they're able to, like, win a couple of close games, or they're able to push a team who we actually know the roster of, like NIP? That's success, right? We're acknowledging the fact that we haven't followed their journey closely, but we know their journey enough to know that this is important for them, right? And that's the proposition to the viewer. Why should they be interested or not interested? And you can say, well, like, MOUZ is the one to solve at the moment, right? Like, how are you getting people to be interested in tuning into MOUZ? Well, you know, that's a tough one to do because people are fed up with the story, but that's the story itself, right? So it's just knowing the framing of what you're working with. I look at Gaming Gladiators. Okay, the org, no fucking idea. But you look at the players: Henny, Phelps, Neckers, Jota, Lucan. Right, you got a couple of Brazilian journeymen in there who have had a couple of peaks, but really they're just giving it a go for probably an okay salary in Brazil. And do we have high expectations? No. But, you know, could we see a Jota pop off or a Henny cool moment on the AWP? Yeah. I'm not thinking they're going to make it to stage 2, but, you know, so I think it's just framing that's important. But again, that comes down to remembering that you don't need to tell me, you know, what hospital these players were born in. You don't need to, like, tell me, like, how well they've been playing in the last 3 months. We're going to see that in the server, right? It's just, I don't know. It's very difficult. I don't know what the solution is at the moment. I'm glad that people are trying things, whether or not they're the right things, right? Because we need to try things to see what can.
I'll give you an angle on
the
this,
viewer.
Chad. I actually have a perspective on this. That if let's just imagine, I'll make it abstract. Let's imagine I ran Flashpoint again, so I got to create a desk for this exact scenario. Here's what I would do in this exact case. I would have someone like King T, who is a nerd, watching all the prospects and all the tier 3 people and trying to know all that. So he'd have the odd piece of info he could throw you about one of these players in the game. And then I'd intentionally have someone like me, who my whole thing would even be, I don't watch whatever level this team plays on. This is the first tournament they've ever qualified to. Essentially, King T's going to give you his perspective on what he knows about them, but they're going to earn my respect just like you, the viewer, because actually, if we're viewers of tier 1 tournaments, do we give a fuck about this team if they go out after 2 games and win nothing? Like, we probably don't. So we're going to learn as we go. So I would balance it like that, because one thing you brought up earlier, I think, is an underrated one, and no fan's going to want to hear this because they hate when we self-aggrandize. But at the end of the day, when you do a desk segment, you also aren't just a puppet talking about players. Like, you are a character. You are a pundit and a personality. Your opinion is important. That's why the nerds all follow it and tell you you're wrong or tell you you're a hater. So I do think it's important to have that opinion. Like, I hate this world where people want it to be analyst and it's a dry, neutral, unprofessional thing. That's, again, think of what I just said about CBS Galazio inside the NBA. If anything, it's unprofessional by the logic of CS fans. Well, those are the best moments because they're showing their personality. I also think if the game's shit, sometimes you do a skit or something funny to entertain still, because the game couldn't deliver that always. Or even when you do the analysis, you make it a bit comical because it didn't maybe hit the threshold for top level CS where they did something amazing. That's why actually the joke is, even though certain TOs and players get very offended, I actually think there's times that people like me and Richard saved desk segments where it was a really bad game between 2 teams that didn't play well and everyone just had an off game and it was a shit match. I think if we'd have actually deep dived that, people they'd shoot out, mate. In fact, also, it feels fake because they know the game was shit. They know this guy didn't have a great match. Like, I feel like if you don't ever address it, it also makes like a really weird artificial environment where you don't feel, again, that you're watching this, like, scene sport. Like, we're not supposed to be super professional. We're not like the fucking Queen isn't watching in a box, mate. Like, we're doing a fucking like a thing where we're all supposed to be nerds who really care about, as you say, we're all passionate about the game, which means, by the way, by definition, if you're passionate, there's going to be people you don't like. Like, people now get it in skits, but you realize it was never a bad thing that on Desk we all used to criticize the fuck out German VP. That was a good thing. We made them like their own weird villain arc, and we made this cool aspect that we got that, like, you, the fan, look, the joke is we as nerds might appreciate what they're doing in the server, but it isn't great CS to watch always. I think actually addressing that, fans like that. They like the little, like, sort of like letting off a bit of steam and like admitting that it's not the greatest CS. Imagine if we just gaslit them that this is like the best shit of all time. Are you watching the best? I think they would hate that, mate. And also, one thing you said earlier, an example of where people don't know what professional is, because in my opinion, are you ready? It's professional entertainment. So actually, by entertaining, you are being professional. That is not an unprofessional thing to do. Miss me with that whole thing CS fans love to do. Like, if I did that in my job, you work at the car phone warehouse, dickhead. You are not there to say straight fire banter. I am literally only there to do straight fire banter and funny segments that entertain people. Because as we're pointing out here, we're not in a world where you're watching TV and you can't change the channel. You're on YouTube where you can click on any YouTube video instead. Or you're on Twitch where there's a million Costreamers and famous people doing stuff. They can click off any minute now if this is boring. Like, this has to actually arrest their attention. And one thing you said earlier, I think is an underrated like feature, not a bug, is, mate, in an ideal world, you aren't all professionals that go, well, I thought that the game needed a little bit of a more pace in it. And then the next guy's like, yes, actually, it also. No, it's actually sometimes the best segments when you know the other person and you intentionally wind each other up. Because that is what, like, the joke could be, and I always, you know this one, so I'll say it publicly. Back in the day, Yanko, if people don't know, a weird thing about Yanko is he has like a personality, let's say, a characteristic that it actually applies to who he likes in the game. So famously, in CS, you won't believe this if you're modern day fans, he won so much you'll think you must love him. Yanko never fucked with Device because he actually thought Device was like MOUZ, like a choker, and he'd get so pissed off that everyone would hype him to the heavens and then he'd fail the big final or whatever. So someone like Yanko, he would try to be professional on the desk and be like, well, you know, I think they underperformed and he could have won. And I would always be trying to wind him up because it's like, that's not what you actually think though, mate. You actually think he's a bitch. Let's just be real. Let's just say it out loud. Like, you actually think he's sort of a coward and somehow he can't like express himself in the game and that he's denying it all. And that's really what you want to talk about, mate. So someone like that, I'm always going to like needle to try and get them out, and or other way around, if they're like friends with Nico, the joke then is, even though he's doing real analysis, you just keep pretending he's just biased to Nico or something. Don't you to bring that? Those are some of the best segments, mate, because you know what buttons to press.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that's...
Sorry, Sam.
Go on.
No, I mean, I think we were going to...
By the way, you're also on the desk as well, so you should talk more, as I always tell you about the desk.
I think you say
so if
that.
you hate technical on desk, it's all my fault, Alex. I'm the one always encouraged. I'm like the. I mean, she has no angel. Just me, a devil on one shoulder, telling her what to do.
Sometimes I do, because I have these opinions, but they're so uneducated, and then I like to.
Those are the best opinions. Those are the best ones.
You say
I've been all
that,
career off
like,
that.
It goes a little bit pear-shaped. I mean, I think the MOUZ arguments just recently with Pimp, when I watched it back, I thought at the time it was entertaining, but when I watched it back, it literally looked like Pimp and I hated each other, and we don't. So it was like this like argument of afterwards. I think it was the third place right at the end. He was doing his consistency. Pimp likes to always talk about MOUZ is consistent. That's what every Counter-Strike player wants. They're consistently in the semifinals. Okay. I had agreed with him in the group stages and kind of encouraged it and spoken about like, you know, how unfair we are in the Vitality era. And then I changed at the end because I just felt like, oh, we need a bit of fun. Also, we had to fill. So I was like, and I turned around to him and I was like, well, you know, they're professional players and they paid a lot of money to win. That was just my response. And they're not winning. And then Pimp kind of came back and he was like, oh, well, there's 30 teams. Are they all supposed to win? And I was like, no, but everyone that's paying them expects them to. And like, we had this like backwards and forwards that didn't communicate as well as it should have in hindsight. So sometimes I worry as a host, like, because I'm not an analyst, then what you've got is you've got like the third person who's not speaking, who is the analyst, but also as the host, when I get into that debate, it can make it look like and I don't think this, but it could look like the host doesn't value the opinion of the analyst. And if the host is kind of saying, well, I don't agree with you, I think your opinion's dumb, then what sort of credential does the analyst have?
Maybe that's how you I take that as you're challenging him to give you more. You're trying to make him actually give more insight or explain fully what he means by that. Like, it's easy to just go with the concept. Like, I even think what Pimp said there is fucking whack. If he was on my show right now, I'd call him out immediately. Oh, there's like 30 teams trying to win. Well, first of all, they don't all get paid the same, do they, dumb fuck? Secondly, they don't have the star players. And then thirdly, if by definition they all don't make top four, why would that be relevant? What the fuck are you talking about? It's like, oh, why don't MOUZ win? Well, passion you have one. But yeah, no, what's that got to do with it, Pimp? So anyway, I think you're right. If anything, you're pissing me off. I want to go back in the time machine, jump out and start attacking him.
Shut up him.
Get me in the game, coach.
I think, like, to take yourself out of it, but to still put the wooden spoon in, right? You can just present your opinion and just say, oh, there's a community sentiment, right? And then that way they're fighting against the invisible community. Just tell him Thorin just tweeted, Pimp. Just because you never won anything, mate, doesn't mean everyone else is fine being a loser forever. I think the problem with the MOUZ one is, right, like, I think the consistency is great and all that, but you put it on a human level, right? Like, these guys, they, like, if you have any semblance as a competitor, you want to win. You're not happy with second place and you hate the feeling of losing. So it's like, can we say, yeah, you're consistent, yeah, it's impressive, but at the same time, you know that them as humans are not satisfied with the results.
Also, is that the moment? I'll tell you why. We just said it earlier. Throughout a tournament and each team's trajectory throughout the event, you give different perspectives and you choose different moments to have conversations. Here's when that conversation with Pimp's a brilliant conversation. After they win the round of 8 of the quarterfinal match. If they win that match and then they make top 4, that's perfect. Like, they've done it again, Pimp. The consistency's there. People after they've just bombed the semi and shit the bed completely, that's the moment you do go in on them. Like, if people don't know, you can go back in history. I did this to a T every time. I hyped up Device and TSM and Astralis the whole fucking time. Every time they're capable of winning this event, they can beat any team. They've been top 4 so many times. They won and then every time they lost, I gave them the fucking business that they never gave us in the server. I put the boots in on them every time because that's literally that's the dynamic of a desk, mate. Like, we praise you for things you do good and the things you do badly, we also criticize you. Like, you can't just be protected from. So what's weird about that Pimp angle is, I know this is like a hyperbolic exaggeration of what he said, but like, that makes it sound like it's not a big deal to win. And if it isn't a big deal to win, what are we watching?
What's the point?
Is this?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
This isn't like the fucking early rounds of American Idol. You just want the guy to get through because he had cancer. Who was the best at fucking Counter-Strike, mate? Like, and I'm sorry, the reason why the MOUZ one will never make sense without making it too specific is because in their case, actually, that is one of the ultimate examples, like the old school Liquid or Astralis, where actually the defining quality of the team is that they just don't win, even though they're capable of it. Because that is the key part, isn't it? Is that they're capable of it. Like, by the way, that is a mega conversation to have on a desk, in my opinion. You can spin that over thousands of desk segments if you do it the right way, because you're trying to find any nuance on it or an angle, or have you seen any growth or change, or you can contrast them with all the teams in the history that are like that. I think it's a great angle for a desk. So even though you're saying like you're worried that people are like thinking you're arguing, I think sometimes it's fine to argue too.
I mean, I enjoy good arguments. I just worry sometimes as the host that, like, I do actually have to drive the show forward versus just have a debate with Pimp because I don't agree with his statements.
All I'm going to say is this, you know what? I'll take you aside for a while. I'll give you a piece of advice. You love on your social media, you're all about all that, like, boss babe, and like, oh, she's girl boss in it. So, well, you know what? Being a girl boss means people might actually criticize you. So fucking own it. So when you do it, so when you do your segment and then they go, oh, I don't know if she should be talking, just go, who gives a fuck? I'm the one with the mic. You shut the fuck up and watch, dickhead. Don't go, they're judging me. Yes, they are literally judging you. You're the only 3 people on camera talking right now. Everyone else in the room has to shut the fuck up. Just go for it, yeah.
I am going to just steal Sponge's thing now and just constantly be like, so there's a community sentiment anytime I have a disagreeing. That works.
Use my tweets. Thorin just tweeted that. You're all following. What do you think about that? There you go. Go straight.
I saw this on Twitter the other day, or I was watching a video, just present it as someone else's.
What I wanted to actually sort of bring up is something that both of you have spoken about, and it kind of ties into Sponge's comments about like the financial implications, right? Versus, and what we're talking about here. So obviously, running a desk from a business point of view, you are hiring talent for that. So those are all people you have to feed and house and pay for the duration of the tournament. You have designers that are set up for graphics. You've got all of that.
By the way, one thing no one ever brings up on this topic, I'll just quickly say as well. One thing I do totally understand with the TOs, which is why they struggle with the desk, is they also do pay you quite a lot of money to do the desk. Like for the amount 100%. Of work that you do, I understand you have to watch the game, but that's a very well-paying job. It's not like we're not getting paid €100 a day. So I understand it also is a big cost.
It's a big cost, and now you have the rise of co-streamers, and
ironically,
podcasts, which are in Counter-Strike specifically, you have all of these podcasts popping up, and a lot of them, I mean, let's be fair, these are all just extended desks. Talking Counter, HLTV Confirmed, Feed the Troll, they are all just desks, really, the concept of a desk, just in a different format with like maybe a different goal. But with all of that other shoulder content, like there is a part of me, especially with the rise of co-streamers, where I'm like, why pay all the money for something that, yes, there is a viewer drop off because yes, they use the break to go to the bathroom and to get food or whatever. So holding them is difficult already.
But that's the wake-up call, isn't it? Like what you've just outlined right there is that's the thing you have to identify as the TO and understand that in those moments, what you have been offering up until this point has not been achieving the goal that you've set out to do, right? So in the early days before co-streaming, okay, it was easy to get people to stay tuned in, but we're admitting as a group here that we thought it was more entertaining and free-flowing back then, which is in line with what we're doing now with the podcast. So then, okay, you acknowledge what things changed. Okay, maybe some of it was personalities. We don't have access to the same personalities that we used to for whatever reason. There's can be one angle. The other angle can be what hurdles did we put in our own way that made this change? And then once you start calculating through those things, okay, we had to do this sponsor thing. So now we had more focus on having structure. Having more focus on structure meant we asked our analysts to tell us essentially what they were going to talk about, which means they're no longer having a conversation. And because they're no longer having a conversation, it's just people out there just saying things, right? And, you know, there's nothing for the viewer in those moments is going to catch them off guard. And if nothing's going to catch you off guard, why do you want to watch? It's the same reason right now the sentiment is, why the fuck are we watching Vitality with everything that's boring? I don't agree with that sentiment, but that's a sentiment that's out there. So the TOs are and have to identify how to keep the eyeballs on these segments because it's inventory for them to make money. So instead of going the way of let's stop hiring these people and put them out of a job, it's okay, what can we do in this time? Maybe with these people, maybe different people, of how we can keep people's attention. Do we get them to focus on more pre-produced content? Do we need to change the structure of when and how we offer these things, right? Right. It's not great that when owner, who has sometimes just as many viewers as the main broadcast, and in some situations, maybe, well, I don't think in CS he's eclipsed, but he's getting close, goes as soon as an analyst desk comes on, no matter what there is, right? Even with ESL events where he goes and plays GeoGuessr and missed the debut of skits because ESL are smart. They plan the skits in between the maps when a banger map ends or going into the next map. So you're there watching, and owner's missing all this stuff because he's playing fucking GeoGuessr, right? Maybe there needs to be an itinerary. Maybe it needs to be like we had TV guides back in the day. ESL says, okay, here's the playoff schedule, and there'll be a skit released in this time slot, right? So you as a viewer go, okay, shit, like I have this to look forward to. Like, do these longer form podcasts as the pre-show analyst desk, right? You could pre-record it the night before. And then you can go, okay, guys, we're going to air this. We're going to have these guests come in, and it's going to be a 2-hour thing. And like, it's about advertising it so the viewer knows to tune in. What Duncan's saying, make sure that you're pushing this content on social media as their own things after, so people build up a relationship with those figures. Offer, and this all sounds so simple saying it, but now this is where you have a shoulder content that's a Telestrator piece or a Stratbook thing with Ash, or now you've got a funny piece, or now you've got some player piece, or you've got this interview, or you film the veto, and now you show the veto process. You need to continue to offer more and more, which is shit because it's a free viewing model. So the ball is always there's always rolling, right? You're never getting a chance. But that's the challenge of what we're doing. Can we master how to keep people's attention? And if we can't, well, then we're doing something wrong.
I've got an angle for you guys. I want both your opinion on this, actually, which is one of the most obvious ways to keep people's attention. This is one thing that drives me crazy about TOs. TOs themselves would never allow certain things to be said or done on their broadcast that they will allow on the core stream, which is essentially just their broadcast plus someone else. And then when that pops off, they go, see, that's why core stream is better than our broadcast. Like, you could just do that on your own broadcast. So one of the most obvious ways to arrest people's attention, mate, is to have big opinions. They don't have to be manufactured. The best thing about Counter-Strike is we are all nerds who live the game. The opinions are big anyway. It's like when people tell me I'm a contrarian, it's like, no, motherfucker, I'm just literally built different. Like, I'm the guy who was there from day one, and I don't give a fuck what people think. That will make me have a different opinion on a lot of different areas. I'm not playing to the crowd. I'm not trying to crowdsource what the correct take is. I'm just giving my take, aren't I? Well, I'll tell you an example of where Maui is actually the contrast, because people will see Maui's sort of been my mentee, hasn't he? I've sort of like tried to bring him up in my route. If you notice, by the way, I even shrewdly told him, don't reference your semi-pro playing career. No one I said, mate, if people don't care that Pimp was like the 22nd best player in the world or something, no one gives a fuck that you played on like invite level NA. Just pretend you were like me, just a guy who's just an amateur who came to the scene, you know. And one thing about Maui, though, that has been really hard in his journey compared to mine is this. If you go back 10 years to when I was in my my heyday. The joke was when ESL rehired me to work their events after I literally said their host country is fucking shit and I don't ever want to go there. They even on the announcement rehiring me had to describe me as impossible to ignore. So back then, I always used to say what people never understood about me on the desk was I was the king of Reddit. Every time I did something funny, that got clipped and put onto Reddit. And if I was doing a good job, the front page of Reddit was like 4 of my clips every day I'm at a big event, right? Here's the problem. In the modern day, even back then, doesn't mean people like the clip on Reddit. People might be going, that's unprofessional. Should he have said that? But that conversation is actually really good because now people care about the actual fucking desk segment and they're even discussing it and what should be there next time and what are the boundaries. Here's the problem. Whereas back in the day, me being box office meant, like, I'll give you the joke. Does anyone remember when Ricky Gervais did all those Golden Globes hosting, where he would roast all the celebrities? And there was one where he basically just broke the fourth wall and he said, and the Hollywood Foreign Press have warned me that if I insult any of you in this room, they'll definitely invite me back next year. Because that was the dynamic. That's what people wanted to see. Well, here's the saddest thing of all. And when I heard this is a mad black pill for the desk, I heard one of the reasons, actually, why, let's say, for example, Maui doesn't get, like, ESL gigs, is the other way around. They don't like that Reddit has a negative perception of him, and that if a clip goes up there, people say, well, it's just guy higher. They actually think that's bad. They're using that now as like the fucking control group to be like, oh, we should not bring this guy. They want other people. They want like famous pros, or they want more professional. I can't handle it because essentially you've taken the exact same inputs, which is the idea people are passionate about what you said and they're having conversations, and you're viewing it as a negative, which I think is crazy. Like, put it this way, you said it earlier, but it's actually true, Chad. The one area I will actually give credit to JL is by being so absurdly, objectively shit, he actually brought more attention to his desk segments than if he just did a normal fucking job. If he'd just done a 5 out of 10 job, no one would even have talked about those segments. He'd have never had a Reddit thread. There'd have been no discussion about his role whatsoever, beyond, like, I guess he was all right, hope he does better next event. If anything, that moment and that, like, weird dynamic actually itself became a storyline. So I think that's one area I can't handle it, because, like, if you actually empower people and tell them, don't worry about Reddit, there are tons of great opinions in the green room. They just never get into the desk.
You know what I think is really interesting about this, right? Like, you're talking about the side, the vocal people. I actually think what was interesting when this JL conversation kicked off is, like, we had a chat about this on Talking Counter. I'm sure other places doing the same thing. People who wouldn't normally talk about how they enjoy a traditional desk or a desk for narrative setting or whatever came out of the woodwork to say, oh, like, I do like this, right? Whereas, because normally people who just enjoy it, we're not hearing from them. Most of the time, if you either love something and you might leave a review, but if something goes really wrong and it pisses you off, you're going to go out there and say something. So it was actually quite nice to see some discourse come out from people being like, no, I do appreciate the desk. Even, you know, I like this. I enjoy that. And we don't see that conversation often because it's the thing that's just happening. You only really see people who are flicking off or having negative things to say. So I thought that it was like just the conversation being brought to the top. We got to see from either side. But on what you're talking about in terms of things ending up on Reddit or with other views, right, from a co-streamer perspective, right? You're saying, oh, you know, owner reacting to this, that's the clip that ends up as opposed to the main broadcast one. One where I did something in recent history that was more co-streamery than like professional, straight down the line commentator was Katowice last year with the Ultimate Mirage clip where I've gone off my tree, right? And I've reacted as somebody would at home, right? And am I hamming it up a bit? And am I doing a bit more because Justin's in the team at the time? Yeah, right. But that's the bit that the viewer resonates with. He's like, oh, Chad's a big Justin fan, right? Oh, and this is Justin's team, and this is happening, and he's going off his tree. And then, like, this year, we're recording stuff for Krakow, and we're doing the lobby, and I'm interviewing Liquid, and Ultimate's there, and him and I are having a joke about this thing. So a thing that somebody else has got offended about on Ultimate's behalf is something that even Ultimate is able to laugh at, and some people enjoyed it. It's like, it is just hard to strike that balance all the time. For sure. And I think that there's such a, like, the amount of games going on all the time. This is why I think that the biggest thing that has to come through is the selection of when you're going to offer the premium desk, when you're going to offer something more relaxed, when you offer something that's not the desk at all. And that's where whoever cracks that code and works out what the recipe should be for engagement throughout a 2-week long event and understanding how we should ramp or where we they're holding the ticket. They're the one holding the ticket right now, and that's the hard solution, because I don't think it's not easy. Entertainment is subjective. Everybody likes something different, you know? It's tough.
I think that's the thing. Like, I mean, I don't know how much truth there is to what Thorin was mentioning about TOs not hiring you because of negativity online, but I have heard it as well. But I do think that's the problem with the desk, right? Is if you do a good job, no one is making a Reddit thread about what a great desk it was.
Sure.
Maybe they'll take a clip, but for the most part, if you're doing a good job, no one's speaking about you. If you're saying something that someone disagrees with, which inevitably they will, then they're coming online. If you're an analyst, they'll say, you're an idiot. You shouldn't be hired. You're unprofessional. You know nothing about the game. And for an analyst, their fear is, okay, the only time anyone's
Talks
talking
about
about
me
me
negatively,
online
yeah.
and it's not about negative. It's about saying that I'm not qualified to do this job. Like, I get worried because when I argue with Pimp, it's not that people are saying they disagree with me. People are going, oh, she's a bitch. She's so unprofessional. She's so disagreeable. I get worried not about tournament organizers, but I'm like, I don't want someone who's coming in as an analyst and who's never worked with me to immediately come in and be like, oh, she's a bitch. I'm going to fight. Like, I've got to be ready to fight with her. Because then that dynamic is a complete fuck up when we work together, because there's like all this weird animosity, right? But I think for analysts, there is a fear that the only conversation online about them is how they don't know what they're doing.
I like the way you think you're like Godzilla. You're like a fucking teddy bear. It's so ridiculous. You go the odd comment and you're like, oh, are people judging me? No one else is even thinking that. The fact that you're even thinking that and have that wherewithal.
I always worry. I just need people like if you want, the thing is, if you want to ban, you guys know this. If you want to have banter, if you want to poke the bear, if you want to find like the things that get under someone's skin and bring it out on desk and make it funny, you guys actually have to genuinely like each other.
Yeah, of course.
You actually do have to be friends, because if you are not, it will not be funny, because someone will take great offense and be upset on the desk, and you'll see that, right? So you want a good relationship with the people you work with.
Sure.
And it is difficult when we're all thrown, we don't get to all work together all the time. And you're all thrown in. So you want to make sure that like everyone feels quote unquote safe, because then you can be complete assholes on the desk and it's super funny. But I do understand why analysts would get upset about and be concerned that TO is the only time that they see any public perception of this person is a Reddit thread saying that they're an idiot. And as much as I don't know if TOs read it, I imagine people in the industry, if you're constantly reading people saying, oh, this guy's an idiot, and you're not watching that product, it's easy to fall into the trap of being like, oh, but the community thinks they're an idiot, right? So then, of course, you're going to come on the desk and be super safe and not want to have a strong opinion because you're terrified that you won't get the next job because there's no job security in esports, maybe?
Yeah, I'm missing something. Isn't it almost a sign that you're doing your job if a really hardcore fan thinks you are fucking biased and you're a hater? Like, I think that on every topic. Like, if you compliment Donk, a Ziwu fan thinks you hit on Ziwu. If you compliment Ziwu, a Donk fan's like, what about Donk? Like, that's just who they are, mate. In a weird way, like, a bad review from that person is a good review for the desk. Also, I know what you mean. Like, that's actually another thing that's really misunderstood about the desk. Beyond rare exceptions where people really didn't know how to read the room and what the, like, dynamic was, you almost never fucking roast someone you don't know. Like, one of the reasons I used to go hard as fuck at Semler and Anders is because they were actually personal friends of mine from like years and years and years. And the joke was, ask Anders this, he has had 1 million people message him like, oh, that Thorin's always bullying you. It's like, he's literally my mate, you lunatic. Like, the whole point is, he's not picking something I don't know about myself. He's picking something that we already would joke about in like a matchmaking game or something. But no, people think it's like you have some rivalry. Whereas that's actually, come back to the beginning of the convo, even though the bizarre thing about the desk is, technically as an analyst, you literally are competing with the guy stood next to you for the gigs. I do think the second you actually go to the event, here's my analogy, it would be like playing for England in football. I might play for a different team than you separately, right? But once we get in the England shirt, we're on the same fucking team. Like, our job in this game is to play together and to succeed. So that's the reason why. And the most famous example ever, I've made it many, many times, is when I came back to ESL for that Cologne event, I let Alex fucking roast me and say my videos are shit and they're like 2 minutes of content in 20-minute video, whatever it was. Because in that moment, it's like, you just that's his moment to win. He gets to have one over him. And by the way, it's also really good dynamic for the desk. But if you're the person who roasts everyone all the time, every now and then you just get roasted one time. That has to happen as a way to like let off a little bit of steam again, you know. So I think people misunderstand it. It's complicated. There's nuance there, but these dynamics are actually really important to make the broadcast good, I think.
For sure. I think we're about to do EPO in a couple of days, right? And we're going to have to be doing online games in a broadcast setting that's more relaxed, so it already lends itself to the camaraderie element. But that's also something you have to build, right? And it's like
absolutely
I don't know if they're going to be able to facilitate it, but you know, talking about what's available in the studio and stuff, I want to use the rehearsal instead of the rehearsal time being used to go, okay, guys, what are we doing? It's like, let's all get in a Counter-Strike server together and play some stupid maps like Snow Day and all this stuff, and like just play CS and be, you know, just a bunch of people who enjoy the game for the game, so that when we go out there to talk about all these teams and players, You know, you carry that level of rapport and stuff with you. And it's hard, like different groups of people, there's different dynamics and stuff that exist or don't exist. And, you know, that's just the way she goes. But yeah, I think it was a simpler time back in the day. So there was also that too. And there was also the element that this, you know, when we were doing this in the early days, I've gone from being a player into being an analyst, and it's still new days of this level of Counter-Strike, right? So a lot's changed within the 10 years. I think you get people now who are like, okay, well, how can I have this as a career? Whereas I think a lot of people who started back in the day were just doing it because it was the thing that they were obsessed about, and they just followed their nose, right? It's nice that when you're here, don't get me wrong, it's a nice place to live. But, you know, in the beginning, it wasn't because I even knew this was an address.
No.
Right? This was just, I like this thing. Let's do this thing. So there's probably stuff that changes generationally too as well. But, you know, Counter-Strike, as long as we're trying, that's the problem. If the TOs and people stop trying, that's when we lose faith. As long as people keep trying things, I think it's okay. Like, I wanted to ask this to you guys. Who do you guys think would be good pros to be on an analyst desk who would have the nuggets of information? Because that's what, like, you can probably get your first 6 months. Maybe even you could stretch it to 12 if you're an all-time great. But after 12 months, your actual tangible game experience stuff is getting pretty diluted unless you're staying mega plugged in with ex-teammates and shit for stories, right? But like, what pros that exist now, retired or still playing, do you guys reckon would be good candidates? One that I always thought would be interesting, Duncan, and I'm curious to see because you've known this guy for a long time. But Patrick Forrest back in 1.6 days, I know I'm like that, I can call him Patrick. He never did interviews, right? But then when he became in CSGO, he became a personality on camera. He was doing the eyebrow thing. And now he's co-streaming all the time where he has to have a personality. And I think Patrick would be a fun guy to like try. I don't know how he would go, but like you would want to have a safety net of other desk members who are, you know, to kind of
know him, etc. Yeah,
exactly. But Forrest is one that I always thought would be a cool, like obviously Carrigan, if he went, you know, he gets it. He's an entertainer now in the server. He gets it, right? So there's definitely some names out that I think could be fun, but you know, I think they don't want to travel anymore.
But it's another thing we're talking about here. This actually gets to like the jail topic as well, which, as I said earlier, I think there are some TO/producer people who are literally cretins. So they just think like that fucking clip from Zoolander, like, oh, this pro's the new hotness. We got to get him on the desk. It's like, that'll get old after 5 minutes, man. Like, what do you think he's going to be saying 20 minutes in or on game 4? Like, again, he's just going to be an analyst at that point in time, but a bad one. So actually, I think when you hire ex-pros, one of the worst things they do, I won't mention the names, but this is going to make it really obvious. So I'm talking about some of the most decorated players of all time go on these desks, and people think, I don't know why, them being an amazing player in Counter-Strike means they're going to be awesome on the desk. Like, what insight is that person going to bring? Most of the things that those people say, by the way, who are obviously mega experts about Counter-Strike, they're not articulate, though. Their skill isn't how to actually vocalize what they are thinking. And a lot of the things they're saying comes off as actually what I said earlier, like shit football platitudes of like, it's a game of two halves where you got to really put, but what they mean by that is like what you call a macro. They're trying to hit in a few words an idea in their mind that's way more expansive. It's about like when they say things like, and the coach should be leading the conversation, they think that's fire, mate, because they're thinking of all the times their coach made it, but they're not articulating it, though. They're just saying what sounds like a really generic statement that anyone could make. So unfortunately, you're not getting the value of their experience, and then unfortunately for them, they're not realizing it's not being transmitted to the viewers. So another thing I also think is, first of all, when you have those people on, you've got to actually nail what type of person is he, because my fear is this, mate. If you did bring Forrest on and you put him in a suit and you put him on an ESL broadcast, a massive event, he's going to think he's an analyst at that point in time, mate, and he's just going to say things like, well, back in Nip, we used to do it. That isn't the Forrest you want, mate. You've just said you want the guy on the core stream, or you want the guy who like has like a funny ass. He does have a humor to him, but you'd have to know him. You'd have to know how to bring that out of him. I'll give you a couple of examples of people, and what the joke is, one of them I don't even like. The other one I like, but I secretly like him. I just pretend not to like him. Two people I would bring on. They're both in Furia right now. One is Yakindar. Right? Yakindar is the most misused media figure ever because he is arrogant as a motherfucker. This guy is absurdly arrogant. But people don't get this. They dislike that with their child. They dislike it if it's direct towards me, because that's just my nature, isn't it? Two assholes aren't going to like each other and get along, are they? But I actually love that he's like that. The problem is, though, on camera, because he was in Liquid Pro and he's speaking in English, he tries to be really buttoned up on camera. And first of all, he'd have good insights. I think he has a very interesting perspective on the game. He obviously is like a secondary caller. Then secondly, I actually think if you prod him a little bit and he got it, he could be really good at doing some like banter and spicy fucking takes on people.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then the other one is Fallen, of course.
Fallen,
mate.
yeah.
Fallen. I wouldn't even try and make it about the game. Forget the professor side. He's actually a really funny guy, mate. He's got like a really good natural sense of humor that's like a little bit sarcastic, and also just an incredibly popular person. I think these two could kill it on the desk. But again, notice how what we set here is you wouldn't just throw them in the deep end. You'd curate who would be around them, sort of bring them into the role they're going to do, and sort of and make the water nice and warm for them, as it were.
So that's kind of what we did. People probably didn't see it. It was probably the pre-show of the semi-final day in Krakow. So I was doing the second best of 3, but I come in early and we do like a pre-show recording. It was maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. I don't remember exactly, but it's pre-recorded. So there's the safety of if you do say anything crazy, it's not live, right? We can fix it. So It's me acting as the host with Yanko and JL. And I've come in and I've said to myself, okay, so we're going to do this pre-show for the day, but I have JL here and I want to get as much out of JL as I can. So what I want to do is tailor a couple of these questions just to his unique experiences on Na'Vi. So not only do we get to learn like what he's saying, we also get a glimpse into what Na'Vi would be doing on a scenario like this. So one of the things I asked him when we were there was like, I'm like, JL, I want you to pretend you're this team. The match just ended, right? The game's over. You're back at the hotel. You've just eaten. What happens next, right? Do you start prepping now? Do you go to bed? He's like, well, if we have the first game, maybe we'll go to bed immediately so we can get some sleep. Or if we got the second game, maybe we'll stay up a little bit and we'll do the prep that night. And then, and then go, okay, so what happens? You wake up. Is it a team walk? Yes. Okay. All right. What's the focus on the team walk? Is it just vibes? Trying to target things that he can talk about from his unique experience that are just stories of their everyday. But that's the insight. That's what he can bring, right? It's like, like how much deathmatch were you playing? What type of prep are you doing? Are you going over nades? All those details there, you're having to pull them out of him. He's not going to offer those for free because he doesn't, like you said, Duncan, it's not on the, like for them, it's second nature. For us, it's the glimpse. Yes. And you have to know, you already have to be peeking inside to know what you want to ask about, right? And that's the hard part. So that's why when you have I think that's one of the good things I saw during Krakow as well. In the early days, you just had Freya, Yanko, and Dupree, and they had a lot of conversations where they were able to tailor it to times where Dupree could tell stories of his teams and dig into those details. And that's not analyzing the match that's coming up. That's using a Dupree story to educate you on how you feel about a certain topic. And I think that's a good way to use those type of people.
Yes. By the way, that's even why if people like Sam worry about their opinions, I don't get it, because he actually just nailed there the dynamic. Your job isn't to have the opinion. It's to know what opinion the analyst has and then get out of him. And I think you kill it at that job. So you just have to know just enough to get it out of them.
I think that's what I try. Like that was what I was talking about earlier with trying to do with personalities, is like figure out who this person is and where they shine and like give them the space to do that. I think just to answer Sponge's question on the pros, and then we've gone over time, was if I would have said Fallen just because I'm a Fallen fangirl and I think he's funny and I'd want him on a desk. But also two that I think would be really good is I actually think Flames from Vitality has the best sense of humor and says whatever the hell he wants. And
he'd get himself taken off air on the first segment, though, Sam.
Sure.
He would say something crazy.
First of all, I actually love that clip where on camera with Shocks, he like tweets at the fucking Turkish fans. Yeah. First of all, my heart goes out to you. Fucking love you already. And then also, I'll tell you a little story. I once DM'd him about something years ago when he was still like a young player, like OG or something. And he just replied like Wagwan or something mental like that. Like, so I agree, actually. That's just a natural personality. It'd be really funny on camera.
I would kill to have Apex. Flames on a desk probably would get cancelled, would be super funny, and I'd kill to have Apex on a desk because I think that he has like mega insight, but funny as hell, and also he gives zero fucks. Like he will say it exactly like it is. He'll call another analyst out if he thinks so. I think those two would be incredible. I have so many more questions, and we have now gone over time. So I was going to end the show by asking you if you think analyst desks as we know them would be dead in a year's time. But I've decided I'm just going to leave it and no one will ever know what you